Hello, I'm Laura Schwartz of Laura Schwartz Live, and I am thrilled to be with you today to interview Lucy Brazier, a friend, a confidant, and an incredible leader I admire. Lucy Brazier, OBE, is one of the world's leading authorities on the administrative profession. She's the author of The Modern Day Assistant, Build Your Influence and Boost Your Potential. She is also the CEO of Markham Publishing, a global force synonymous with world-class conferences and training. Lucy is passionate about ensuring the assistant role is truly recognized as a career and not just a job. She is dedicated to supporting the development of both senior and aspiring administrative professionals. In fact, she was awarded the Officer of the British Empire Medal by Queen Elizabeth II in 2021 for her services to the office professionals community. Lucy has keynoted at almost every major conference in the world for assistants and has a unique overview of the role and where it is heading. Please welcome Lucy. Hello, Lucy.
Hi, Laura. How wonderful to see you.
It is just a delight. It's an honor. It's a joy. Anytime I have the opportunity to spend a moment with you, Lucy, whether it's virtual or in person, it literally is life-changing for myself. It's life-changing for everyone you encounter. So I am just thrilled you're taking the time today to really speak to the modern day assistant all over the world about the value and really the credence they bring this profession every day. This is exciting.
I'm really excited to have the opportunity to talk about it, actually. And thank you so much for agreeing to do the interview.
Oh my gosh. Again, it's an honor, Lucy. So let's dive right in. Let's talk about this book, which has just been the top of the charts for a reason. It's credible. It's got amazing information. It truly makes an impact within the industry and ripples throughout all other industries as well. So tell me, Lucy, what made you decide after all these years speaking and traveling the globe that now is the time to write The Modern Day Assistant?
You know, Laura, I've been training this for 10 years. And whenever I train it, I have people who attend the course who say to me, "Oh, Lucy, I won't go back to being the assistant I was before. This course has really changed my life." And they kept saying to me, "You must write it." And to a certain extent, you sit there and you think, well, how lovely. That's a really lovely thing to say. But also, for me, when we got to the point where we were coming out of COVID, it occurred to me that everything had just changed in the business world. But for the executives, there had never been a more important time for them to be doing the work that they are actually employed to do. And of course, the assistant is there to give them back time and to take the things away from them that they shouldn't be doing. Because it's simple economics, isn't it? That says that if both the executive and the assistant can do something, it should be the assistant that's doing it. And really, I felt there were so many thousands of assistants, well, millions actually. It's a fifth of the world's working population. It's about 500 million of them worldwide. So there were thousands, millions of them who had never heard what I had to say. And I really wanted them to understand what their role was in their organizations and that they are subject matter experts in what it is that they do. They are not just the assistant.
Well, and that's what I like so much about the subtitle of the book too, Lucy. Build your influence and boost your potential. Why was it so important for you to call that out?
Because I think for most assistants, they start from a mindset of limitation. If we're absolutely honest, not many people decide that they want to be assistants. They fall into it because they're not quite sure what they want to do. And maybe they think, well, I can get into an office environment and maybe I can move up after a little while. Or maybe they feel like they aren't as academic as somebody else in their family or their parents want them to be. So they never have that moment of feeling, I made it, I achieved what I set out to achieve. And I wanted them to feel that there was a career framework within this particular profession, and it is a profession now, it's not just a job, and that they can work their way up and really attain excellence within this arena.
Well, and you just mentioned, really it's job versus career as you look at it. I think about a career being something that's 24/7, a fabric of your life. And a job is often just 9 to 5. You go put your time in. So how has the career of the assistant really evolved over the past decade? How you address it in the book, of course.
Well, I think that, originally it was a male career. You know that. It was secretary. Secretary was the word, it means keeper of secrets. And the assistants as a female profession only came about because of World War II, when the men went off to fight. But I think women have such amazing emotional intelligence that that's core to the role, and it's core to being able to perform properly. We need the human skills now. But for me, I think that we, in the last 12 years, have changed in the way that we work as assistants totally. Firstly, because of the last recession 12 years ago, when a lot of the middle management went and the assistants were asked to pick up a lot of that stuff. So we now have 87% of assistants doing events and about 53% of them doing HR and a whole heap of them doing marketing and finance and all the other things that middle management were doing. And of course, there's nothing more permanent than temporary, so here we are with them doing that. Then we have AI. We have the fourth industrial revolution. The assistant role is moving from being task-based and reactive far more into being strategic and proactive. And they're starting to get involved with things like project management and with data analysis and with briefing documents, and really making sure that their executives are focusing on the goals and KPIs that they need to focus on within their organizations. And then, as I just mentioned, COVID, I think, has had an enormous impact because the organizations for the first time are looking at what the value is that each employee is bringing to the bottom line, what the ROI is. And for the first time, that's including the assistants. And they're not sure how to measure that, but we are helping them to understand the math around that and how they can ensure that they are maximizing the way that each assistant is used within the organization to make sure that every dollar of the executive's salary is dropping to the bottom line.
And what I think is really great inside your book is that you talk about strategies for assistants to build their influence. Do you want to give us a few of those strategies, just to whet our appetite for more?
Absolutely, and to me it all starts with trust. I think for assistants, it's about stepping into the things that you know you want to do and having confidence about doing that. But you don't want to try and take on too much all at once. It was interesting. I interviewed quite recently a guy who was the head of the Seattle Philharmonic Orchestra and his assistant. And they were talking about partnership. And he was talking about the fact that he felt that it was very annoying that he employed assistants to do a role which was this. And very quickly, once they started at the organization, they wanted to do this. And really, I talked to him and said, okay, so that's annoying because you want them to do this, which is their role. But if they prove that they can do that and they can do it immaculately, then you would be happy for them to do this. And then maybe this. And then the role expands over time. But you have to build the trust in the first place. So maybe take 3 things that you would like to do slightly differently, and no more than 3 because you'll confuse yourself and you'll confuse them, and deliver them immaculately over a period of time. And then they're going to allow you to move into other things, but maybe step into things that don't feel like they're in your comfort zone, things that you think are maybe slightly outside your remit, and then prove to them that you're capable of doing them and in a really amazing way. And then they'll trust you and let you do more.
Well, and that's something that, is hard for everybody, stepping outside of your comfort zone. And sometimes you think you're the only one in the room. But what I think is just incredible about executive support media is that it's just that. You have support yourselves. These modern day assistants that otherwise really didn't have a place to go to it. Now you have the most amazing events around the world. You are training in all different size groups on all different size budgets, and you're able to really, affect that confidence. And it's very different these days because of the digital world and the remote working world that modern day assistants are now facing. So how do you speak to the assistant about dealing with that change?
I think at the heart of all of it as an assistant, whether it's remote or not, is communication. And where it falls down is where the communication is wrong. So the assistants need to be over-communicating, if anything. And they need to remember that 55% of communication is body language, and 38% is tone and pace and pitch of voice, and it's only 7% that's the words. So if you're communicating remotely by WhatsApp or by email and you don't ever get to meet with your executive, you've got a problem, particularly if things are starting to go awry, because they're going to receive what you're writing to them in whichever tone they hear it at that time. So to me, the secret is to make sure that you are having 10 minutes a day with your executive, that you are going through the things that are the priorities for the day, because let's face it, priorities change right now, not just daily, but probably hourly, because they should want that. Having that 10 minutes a day means that you can get on with doing your job, which is to make them look amazing. So why wouldn't you want that?
That is such a good point, Lucy. And those 10 minutes are so valuable, not just to the assistant. It's really crucial for the executive themselves. And when that's communicated, I think they are willing to make that 10 minutes a day. And that really is a brilliant concept and something that we can all implement immediately. Now, remote work or not, in the office or not, no matter how many executives you may be supporting, it can be stressful. And I love how eloquently you speak about stress when it comes to your trainings and your wonderful conferences from Executive Support Media. And many of your articles deal with this too on a monthly basis, which I think is just fantastic. And you devoted an entire chapter to dealing with stress in the book, which was really quite profound. What motivated you to do that?
Well, it's the last chapter, Laura, and a lot of people I think will find that strange. But to me, I've given them so much in the rest of the book, which is change, and change is uncomfortable. And I'm demanding, really, that they step outside of their comfort zone. And as we've already said, that's stressful too. So for me, I have a really difficult relationship with stress. In 2010, burnt out. And went home. I was looking after 13 magazines and all the associated events, and it was year end, and I was looking after my children, 3 of them, and 4 stepchildren, and really it was 7 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, and I just went in one day and it was like my brain had gone, if you don't stop, I'm going to make you. And I couldn't think of one thing that I had to do. It was like my brain had been wiped out, and it was terrifying. And so for me, I wanted them to understand that there is life after death. And really, very shortly after that, because I realised I couldn't go on working in an office environment in that way, I started my own magazine, because I felt that really I had to obviously contribute to the money that was coming into the household, especially with that number of children. And I felt it was something I could do from my kitchen table. But if you had told me at that point that I would count among my personal friends people like you and Bill Gates' assistant and Jeff Bezos' assistant and Obama's assistant, or that I'd be touring the world, or that I have a best-selling book, or that I would have got my OBE, I would have clearly thought you were mad. So to me, I wanted to give them strategies to deal with stress, but I also wanted them to understand that everybody at some point is stressed. Sometimes stress is good because it takes you out of that comfort zone and means you achieve things you didn't think you could. And at the end of the day, assistants are always going to get stressed at some point or another, but let's take it and let's use it. Let's understand how to get the balance. Let's understand how to say no. They're very bad at that. There's lots of tips for that in the book as well. And let's set them on a course where they can manage that effectively.
Well, and really, Lucy, what I appreciate about the book and everything that you do is the great strategies that you impart and the discussions you have. It's just so personal to read the book and feel like you're sitting right next to you as you're reading it. These strategies don't only apply to your work life. All of them can be adapted in your family life, in your community life, and where you live and how you live your life. And I think that is such a wonderful way to highlight how we can all take away something, whether it's around a work situation or not. So it's a fantastic part of the book, because modern day assistants, and the assistant has evolved quite a bit, handle stress each day. And really part of that stress, I think, throughout the profession has been this evolution and sometimes these debunked myths about the assistant role itself. And you debunk some of those myths in the book. Tell us about that.
Oh my word. I think that assistants are thought of very often as being reactive and belonging to their executives and doing what they're told and really quite subservient in the role. But that's changed absolutely, totally. And for me, whereas it used to be that the executive was up here and the assistant was down here, in a new world of work where there's collaboration, what it's about is the assistant bringing their skill set to the table and the executive bringing their skill set to the table, and then both understanding the goals and working together to achieve them. That's why the graphic on the front of the book, because no longer is it the executive getting a goal and going on this emotional and intellectual journey towards success, and the assistant running along behind going, hello, how can I help you? Throw me some things to do. These days, the executive gets the goal, they sit down with their assistant and they work out what it is that the assistant is able to take away, to handle, so that the executive is freed up to do the things that only they can do. And then they both go on that intellectual and emotional journey and they hit the success together.
Well, I was going to ask you about the cover icon. It's fantastic, and now I know that was such a great explanation. You're right. You're on that path. So Lucy, how does the assistant support the executive while at the same time build their own career and make sure that there's advancement for them as well?
You know, I talk a lot in the book about time boxing and the assistant having their own calendar and making sure that everything they do is going into that calendar. So, of course, you're putting in there the things that you absolutely have to do, the priorities, the really urgent stuff. I hate to-do lists with a passion, you know. If you do one thing on your to-do list, it's like Medusa, 6 heads grow back. But with time boxing, you can take the things you absolutely have to do today. They go in, they fit around the things that are meetings, for example, but also I, in my personal time box, have the personal things that I'm doing too, like date night and lunch and walking to work in the morning and exercising and all that stuff. But for the assistants, I say to them that very definitely their professional development has to be in there too. If you don't calendar it, you're never going to get to it. And it's the things like managing risk and looking at processes and procedures and how you might change those so that everybody benefits from that, and forward planning and imagining the future. The things that you never get to as an assistant because you live in crisis and in firefighting, those are the things you need to calendar, because then they're going to get done. And I know a lot of assistants say, well, yes, but who has time for that? Well, you know what? If I was to say, I'm going to take you on a first-class flight to New York and we're going to go and meet for dinner with Hugh Jackman, you would probably make time. So it isn't a question of whether you do have time, it's a question of whether it's a priority.
And one of those priorities you talk about in the book, Lucy, is continuous improvement and taking yourself to the next level with continuous learning along that line. And how do you address that in the book?
Well, in case anybody who's listening hasn't heard about it, we created back in 2021, well, the World Administrators Alliance created the Global Skills Matrix. And the Global Skills Matrix is a career path for assistants. It's a career framework for assistants, which says what skills you need at each level of being an administrative professional. And there are 5 different levels. I explain it in a lot of detail in the book. But it's got the kind of skills you need at each level. It's got the tasks you can be expected to do at each level. And for the first time globally, this framework is available. It's been signed off by the heads of associations of 29 countries. And it's really making such an amazing difference in companies. BlackRock has just implemented a framework for their assistants. We have all sorts of other major businesses doing the same. And Harvard Business Review are following around the people at BlackRock, putting in place a case study so that they can publish it later on. But I think if the assistants understands what excellence looks like at each level, it doesn't matter if you only want to be a level 2 assistant, at least you know how you get to be exceptional at that level. But you also understand how you can rise through the ranks and what the things are that you're going to need to study if you want to get to the top of your profession.
Well, and your work with the Alliance is really fantastic. The way that you have made such an impact with international organizations of substance and credibility. So that I love the skill set, and you're right, whether or not you want to go to a level 5 or level 2, all of this is knowledge that we can bring together. And you also talk about the skill set, and many of those skills for the modern day assistant are soft skills. They are interpersonal dynamics. So with that in mind, where do you see soft skills of an assistant really making an impact?
Well, you know, Laura, we used to value people who could give us facts. We would say you were really clever if you could remember all the presidents of the United States and the dates that they served, right? But in the days of Siri and Google and Alexa, we can say, hey, give us a list of the presidents of the United States and when they served. So it doesn't become so important anymore. And everything that I'm reading is saying that the skills of the future are the human skills. And the assistants have those in abundance. So it is the communication skills, the emotional intelligence, the attention to detail, the ability to negotiate, teamworking, all the things that mean that the organisation is running smoothly so that the executives can get on with doing the pieces that are all about inspiration and driving the organisation forward. They've got the detail, they've got the process and procedure piece, they've got the making sure everybody understands what's meant to happen and the team working together bit. Then the executive can get on with doing the work that drives everything forward.
I can only imagine, Lucy, traveling now that the book has been out, just the feedback that you're hearing from assistants, whether that's on the road and you're face-to-face with them, or it's coming in through the Executive Support Media website, or coming through to you on all your social media platforms, of which I thank you for being so active on social media. And if anyone is not following Lucy Brazier yet, follow her now, everywhere you can, because you really have such great substantive call outs and ideas. So what has that feedback been from the assistant who's read the book?
It's just been phenomenal, actually. And I didn't expect it quite that way. I mean, when I said I was going to write the book, the team said you don't have time. And I really didn't have time. I wrote it on planes mainly with the light on, annoying everybody else. And then when I sent it to the publisher, it was interesting what you said earlier about you feeling that I was talking to you, because the publisher, I originally wrote it and the publisher said, you sound like you're teaching a class. And I said, well, yes, because I've just downloaded my brain onto the page. And they said, go back and write it as if you're writing to one person, which I did. And everybody that reads it comes back to me and says, it sounds just like you're talking to me. And I love that. But a lot of feedback saying you absolutely have to read this. What I hadn't expected, I thought it was my course, but I think the feedback I got more than anything else that was surprising was that it felt like a manifesto for the future of the profession. And I didn't intend it to be that. It seems to have just become that. But lots of 5 stars all over the place, which is wonderful. Lots of people writing saying, this is just exactly what I needed in my career. And I'm so thankful and so grateful that it hit the mark, because I was hoping it would do.
Well, it is well-deserved, Lucy. Every single star you get is so well-deserved. And, you mentioned about, looking to the future. I would absolutely label you, Lucy, as a futurist, because you've always, embraced the presence, but have always, in every conversation that we've had, and every executive, secretary live that we've been at together, you look to that future and you empower everybody present with the skills to get to that future. And right now, in the future, we're seeing so much about AI and automation. How do you discuss that future of the profession, which is much of it happening here and now already? What's your conversation like when it comes to the use of automation and AI and the role of the modern day assistant?
AI isn't going to take their jobs. People who understand AI are going to take their jobs. And all the press is saying the assistant role is going to be taken over by AI. I can remember when the internet came in. Yes, I'm that old. And I can remember, because I was working on the Times, on the secretarial section then, that there were headlines then saying that the job was going to go, or that people were going to be working half days. The assistants were going to be working half days, and none of them are. It's a tool, It's a skill. It's a skill. It's not a product, it's a skill. And really, yes, of course, if you can do something twice in the same way, it can be automated. And things like calendar and email and travel and all the really traditional things that a secretary did and that junior level assistants do are going to be automated. And we're seeing more and more that even the more complex of that stuff is being automated. But what I'm also seeing is that Glassdoor are saying that the EA role, the more strategic role, the more proactive role, is one of the top 10 jobs of the future. So I think as long as the assistants are understanding that it's about transformation and that they have to step into a more strategic role so that they're supporting their executives in a different way, and really understanding the business. I think if you understand the business, you're not going to go wrong. Understand your executives' goals, their KPIs. What does success look like for them this year? What are they trying to achieve? Because for me, when you are looking at the role of the assistant just being that reactive task-based stuff, it's misunderstanding the role. The role is to support in whatever the executive needs done. And if you understand what needs to be done, you're halfway there.
Well, is that sort of how you see how the assistant can make themselves indispensable as it comes to executive leadership in their role? Is that kind of attitude as well as those skills?
I totally agree with you. I think the assistants know a lot about their businesses right now. They probably don't understand them. And very often assistants say to me, I want to be treated like everybody else in the organisation. I don't want to be just an assistant. I don't want to sit outside of the core business. And I'm quite tough with them. I say, you have to do the work. That's fine, but you need to understand how to speak business. You need to understand what your executive's trying to achieve, and not just at a surface level, but really understand where you can support them to get there, and really drive forward what your role is. Take charge of it. Don't sit there waiting to be told what to do.
That's exactly it, Lucy. And I think it's those real conversations that you have within your training sessions and all the programming and events that Executive Support Media produces throughout the year, all throughout the globe. It's really just those conversations that are real, that can make a great difference. And I am just so excited that you have the book now, because that way, in between all the amazing training and the conferences, like ES Global and Exec Live around the world, and your training, this is a wonderful resource for everybody to have at their fingertips always. And with that being said, what would you think, what to yourself and to those that you're hearing from, what's the key takeaway? If anybody was to take away just one thing from the modern day assistant, what would you want it to be?
I'd want it to be that you need to own your career, and that we have quite a short window of opportunity right now, because as I said at the beginning, everything just changed in the world of business coming out of COVID. So what is one more change? But actually, it's not going to be long before the world of business shakes down again and the doors shut, and they stop looking at the changes they need to make post-COVID. So do it now. Don't wait for somebody else to go do it. Go download the Global Skills Matrix, work out where you are, and talk to your organisations about it. And if you need to, contact me, because I'm talking to organisations all over the world about how they can best utilise their assistants and helping the assistants to move into the career that they want it to be. But don't wait, do it now.
Love it. Don't wait, do it now. Lucy, there's so much in this book. There is so much throughout Executive Support Media. And I almost feel guilty asking you this question, because you just went through this entire project. What do you see as now that the book is out and getting this kind of feedback, what do you see as your future projects and where you want to sort of like spend that journey with assistants all over the world? Is it another book? Is it other conferences and training opportunities?
More and more, my team is running the publishing business, and I am out talking to organisations and really just going into organisations and talking to their executives and talking to their HR departments about how they can use their assistants properly. And that's key, because the publishing company is talking to the assistants a lot. And of course, I don't want to stop doing my trainings because I love doing them. And also it keeps me current. If I'm talking to the assistants a lot, then I know that I've got my finger on the pulse. However, the talking to the executives, talking to the HR departments, and seeing the revelation when they realise what they could have if they use their assistants properly is extraordinary. And the work around the Global Skills Matrix as well, making sure that that remains current, making sure we're taking that into organisations, and starting to restructure assistants as a department is the other thing that I really excited about, because usually assistants are siloed, they work right the way across the business, but what that means is that there's no leadership, there's no career structure, there's no performance review, all the things that other people absolutely take for granted. And when organisations sit down and they think about it, they suddenly go, oh, if we can measure it, we can improve it, and that's exciting. So
I love that.
Lots more of that, I think.
if we can measure it, we can improve it. And that goes for ourselves individually in our lives and work and all of it together, as well as, in the workplace. And Lucy, I have to tell you, I often call you a leader in the executive support industry, but I really believe a title that encompasses you is you are an ambassador for the executive support industry. You are an ambassador of the training and how it is relational to the assistant themselves, whether they're just coming into their career or they've been in this career for 20, 30, 40 plus years. And you are an ambassador, as you were just talking about, sharing with HR departments and executives and leadership about the power and how to empower that role of the modern day assistant, I think is just something we are all grateful for. As I speak on behalf of an entire community and industry around the globe, we are grateful for your time, your ability to share. And I just want everybody out there to know, when Lucy discusses about having seen people, around the world and staying up on what their needs are and hearing them, you hear people, you see people, and to be heard and seen is something in this life we don't know how often that person we're speaking to, making sure that they're heard and seen, are heard and seen in their lives. And you give that moment, Lucy, you give that moment through your appearances at events and your discussions and your sessions. But like I said, I can pick up this book and feel like I'm sitting right next to you. And I feel heard, I feel seen, and I truly am grateful on behalf of an entire industry of what you do each and every day, and that of your family and your team at Executive Support Media. It truly is a family affair.
Thank you, Laura, very much indeed. That means a lot to me coming from you.
Well, Lucy, congratulations on the book. Congratulations on ES Global and all of the programming throughout the year and the magazine. It truly is remarkable, and it's joyful to be with you. Thanks, Lucy.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you so much.